In a lot of ways, Destiny Rise of Iron is more of the same. When it does the Destiny formula well, it's polished with challenging combat and plenty for a veteran Guardian to do. A lot of the time, though, it falls into the same trap Destiny's always been susceptible to and turns into a seemingly endless, repetitive grind that often feels empty. The new 2 or so hour campaign is emblematic of how Rise of Iron as a whole stacks up. It definitely brings more of what I already like about Destiny, like taking on waves of spongy enemies and fights that are all about your positioning in the area, but it does little to improve upon Destiny's strengths or fix its problems. The difficulty mostly comes from a mysterious virus-like nanotechnology called SIVA enhancing the power of the Fallen, which obviously makes them harder to kill. The campaign starts out well-balanced for players of different skill levels, but the combat from one mission to the next never builds on itself or does anything we haven't seen from Destiny before. You kill a wave of Fallen, move to another room, and kill another wave of Fallen. Destiny's combat remains as fun as it's ever been, but that's the problem. It's pretty much exactly the same in Rise of Iron. Enemies are all just reskins of existing ones. Even the first mini-boss is a buffed-up version of Year 1 boss Sepix Prime. I've done it all before. But to its credit, the environments are familiar in a much more interesting way. Most of Rise of Iron's new content takes place on Earth in areas we've already seen, but now that SIVA's tendrils cover the land, there are new and clever places to take cover that make it feel fresh. The new zone, Plaguelands, is a SIVA-infested expansion on the familiar Cosmodrome and complements the reimagined area as well, which makes it a compelling area to explore. The story itself unfolds more clearly than most in Destiny, which was refreshing, though it's not a terribly good story in general. It's a lot to cover, the truth of what happened to the once immortal Iron Lords and how the Fallen found SIVA in the first place, but Rise of Iron does it succinctly. The letdown is that without any original twist or surprises, it falls a bit flat by the end. The campaign is at its most interesting when bosses are in the mix. The final fight required me to take what I'd learned about positioning and apply it far more carefully than before, and it was the only time during the campaign that I felt like I needed a concrete strategy. The new Strike mission implements that same idea really well, and I loved it because it built upon the campaign while being different enough to not feel repetitive. Rise of Iron could have used a lot more of that. After that, it's disappointing that there's little to alleviate the repetition that comes in between finishing most of the new content and doing the raid. Playlist lets you play random strikes to get better gear, but I hadn't leveled up much at all before I exhausted them and had to start repeating strikes over and over. It definitely kept me and the most hardcore of my friends occupied for a while, but a few powerful new weapons weren't enough to cure my intense Sisyphean frustration. The saving grace is a challenging, satisfying raid that combines greatly increased difficulty with far more intense tactics than anything else in the expansion. It's a great raid, but still a bit disappointing in that it feels a lot like what came before. Rise of Iron has just enough new content to keep me coming back for a while, but it feels like the bare minimum. When I wasn't absent-mindedly grinding against reskin enemies until I couldn't do it anymore, I was falling down the rabbit hole of side quests and trying out new weapons while patrolling the Plaguelands, and eventually doing the tough but still unoriginal raid. I wish this expansion had focused more on fixing Destiny's repetition problems, because it has a few good ideas. But with all its pitfalls, this is just Destiny going through the motions. For more on Destiny, you're already in the right place, IGN.